Good evening. Everybody hear me okay?
We can hear you. Good evening.
And what I was going to show you, Craig, especially before we even get started, I indulge myself. Some people know I have I've been spending time when I do shop, I'm shopping online and algorithms show you everything. I talked about this earlier in my Patreon, but I found this bad boy right here. It's heavy metal. You definitely need to get one. As a matter of fact,
yeah, I noticed that the last broadcast, and I was going to ask you. I'm glad you said something because I was like, "Yo, that's a nice comb right there, bro."
So 32 real. Let's see, what is that in Brazilian USD? So
like $5, like five.
Like $7. Is it 5.5 now?
Well, let's take a look.
Big stuff.
Great.
I'm digging it.
It's going to be literally impossible to hear you because whatever you got plugged in there, whatever is on that same line, wow.
If you put your laptop on a book or something, would that stop the buzzing? Like put it on a textbook or something like that?
I don't know, but he's never had this problem before. So we'll figure out how to. Good evening from Inflammation. So hopefully we'll get it figured out. Get it figured out. I don't know what happened, but something is plugged into that same wall socket, perhaps. Yeah. There we go. Yeah, Green Machine said, "What's the buzzing?" Because that someone's mic is making a weird sound. So hopefully, when you come out of mute, we'll have figured that out. I wanted to make sure we had a chance to do this because I've got a lot of really concerned people that messaged me. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to get this message out. So I want everybody to make sure you can find me on Facebook or LinkedIn. This is linked there, or Twitter. Make sure to share it. Craig, did you share this? I tagged you on Facebook. So yeah, you did? Okay. So here's where we are. I'm getting a lot of concerned calls and messages from people who love and care about Brazil. And they call with that same sense of panic because apparently the pictures they're getting is Brazil is on fire. You're all going to die. Death, woe, and dismay. Now, I want to be clear. The COVID virus is a real thing. It is killing a lot of people worldwide. But what I want to also be clear about guys, I want to be wrong about this. People listening, I want to be wrong about this. I feel as if this, as well as every other infirmary or disease, is a direct function of where you stand economically. Mm-hmm. So before we even get into that, before we even get into that, I'm going to show you guys something. A lot of people don't have the scale of Brazil. People say, well, what's it like in Brazil? And they don't know. Let's see. This is America. A lot of people really don't understand the size of the country. Let's see, size. Brazil versus America size. There was a picture I found once, and I'm going to share it here to give people an idea of what we're talking about when someone says, hey, I heard something crazy is happening in Brazil. This is what they're looking at. This is what they need to consider. Do most of you know that that's the size of Brazil?
I don't think most people understand that's the scale. I think they think it's a small within Latin America, but they don't understand that in terms of land-wise, mass-wise, that it's pretty much the same size as the U.S., if not larger.
Now, here's the other interesting and if you chop it all up to pieces, it's at least the same size, minimum. And just for the context of this conversation, I also want to say, when they say, well, listen, Wateef, I'm hearing reports about the city of Sao Paulo where you live. Sao Paulo is 12.2 million people. I believe it's the 9th largest city in the world, something like that. It's enormous. So what we're dealing with is when someone says, hey, what's it like there? Are you okay? Are you safe? I want to say that safety is a relative term, just like the United States. As a matter of fact, I have several friends who've gone back to the United States that talk about this. But Brother Adams, where are you right now?
I'm currently in Rio de Janeiro in the Leme Copacabana neighborhood. So I'm about 2 or 3 blocks away from the beach, and about 8 blocks away from the Copacabana Palace.
So when people ask what it's like, for example, he's 6 hours away from me. Mm-hmm. He's a 6-hour drive away from me, an hour by plane. The same thing may be true for you. As expats, or if you're part of that, what I call the pyramid, and I want to show people this, I'm going to show you why safety is a relative thing. If you are an expat here, you're probably not living on any government assistance. Craig, there you are with no backup, no interference. Craig? Craig, can you hear us? Uh-oh, Craig can't hear me. Let's keep it moving.
I can see him. Right.
Yeah, I see him just fine, but he can't hear us.
Hello? Hello?
Craig, yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Yeah. Yes, I hear you, sir.
All right, good. All right, I'm ready.
Okay. So here's what we talk about when we say, are you safe? Safety in Brazil is no different from safety in the United States. It's a matter of where you are economically. If you are a foreigner living here, you don't live on government housing, you only have a source of income that puts you easily in the top 10% of income earners in this country. Well, what does that mean? That means in a city like Sao Paulo, I can afford not to live in the favelas, not to live in the ghetto. I don't have to live in a low-income neighborhood. I think I would call my neighborhood slightly below middle class or at middle class. I don't think middle class really exists here, but I do that on purpose because I'd rather live in a neighborhood where people know me as opposed to one of the fancy high-rise buildings where nobody knows me. Good afternoon, BK. Thanks for showing up. And as always, he reminds people to like, share, subscribe, comment, and I really appreciate that. So here's where we are. When people say, are you safe? For example, I have the privilege of working online as an editor, copy editor, proofreader, having fun on YouTube with you great people. I can order all my groceries online. I can live in a neighborhood where police don't they're actually driving up and down the street with no apparent agenda other than, hey, we see you trying to sneak your store open, close it. That means I have a layer of safety that most people don't, even though we're in the same city. So it's kind of like when people talk about crime in Chicago or New York City. Well, crime isn't equal everywhere. Depending on where you live in New York, Chicago, LA, crime is something that you hear about, but it's something that happens over there.
Right.
You know, and I want to really get a message out to people that you have to say, where do you live when you ask, how is Brazil fighting this? Before I keep going on to a couple other points I want to make, Brother Gerald, Craig, I want you two to chime in.
So I'm not sure where you are, Craig. I'm in Rio de Janeiro, and I'm in the Leme Copacabana neighborhood. And as Yusef was just saying a second ago, this is, you know, for the most part, this is a middle class neighborhood. So what I've seen here is a lot of people carrying on about their lives with a jog in the morning, walking their dogs. A good percentage of people are practicing social distancing, and that's because they have the luxury of ordering through Uber Eats, or they have the luxury of ordering through iFood or Rappi. But I've also paid attention to people who don't have that luxury. One of the things people don't realize about Rio de Janeiro, when you come to the tourist areas like Copacabana, they have little small favelas that are, you know, in the cut. They're not like right in your face, but if you walk down the block and then walk up some stairs, there's a whole different world at the top of those stairs. And most tourists don't know about that. They know of Rocinha. They've seen that or they've been told of that. But what they don't know is that built into this community right here, there are many favelas. They're not the same that you might have seen on City of God or any of these other movies that I know I used to watch about Brazil when I was in my 20s, way before I even visited. But those people are not able to order the same. They don't have access to these apps and things like that. And a lot of them are coming out to sell masks. This is an example. I bought this mask, and I purposefully will buy an extra mask on the street whenever I am going to the Zona Sul grocery store or something like that. I will buy a mask that I want to add to the economy. But I've also noticed that there's some stubborn people here who are having beers, and it starts very casually. One person stops off at the little lanchonette or the Boteco, and they'll crack a beer. Everyone starts off with the mask. You start off with this, and then someone comes and you take it off for a second. You have a sip of the beer. They put the mask back on, and then the next guy comes and he has then you walk by 30 minutes later after you've done your shopping, and all the masks are gone, and everybody's having a drink, having a smoke together. So that's what's happening here in Copacabana, Rio de Janeiro. I'm noticing that people are casually stepping out of the social distancing. So you have people who practice it religiously, and they've got on the mask and the face screen. But I'm also noticing that people are becoming fatigued.
Oh yeah,
They're
for sure.
fatigued of social distancing. People were riding their bikes with a mask. On Sunday, I saw a lot of people riding bikes with no mask. I used to see people jogging with the mask. Now I'm noticing it's like half of the people have a mask on and half of them have the mask off. So I think they're becoming fatigued after almost 2.5, 3 months of social distancing. This population here is becoming fatigued within this neighborhood. I can't speak for the other neighborhoods, but that's what's happening right here.
And yeah, thanks, Gerald. So for where I live right on the outskirts of Sao Paulo in a city called Osasco, which is literally like maybe a stone's throw from Sao Paulo. And I've witnessed a lot of the same things like you're sharing. Like in my particular neighborhood, a lot of the people have the luxury of being at home and working from home and, you know, ordering Uber Eats and all that type of stuff. So me personally, everybody's still where I live, everybody's social distances, everybody's really strict on their mask wear. As a matter of fact, if we go to the supermarkets, which are within walking distance, everybody practices social distancing. They'll check your temperature before you even get into the supermarket. And they've been doing that since March. Now, you do have people who don't wear masks, but they're socially distant. Like people are still jogging the way they did before, exercising. Nobody's going to any parks per se. But people are pretty much in my area living as they normally would. And even in the outskirts of where I live, like near the Presidential Tino area, there's a favela outside of there. They're still pretty much practicing social distancing, if anything else. And also where I live, everybody's selling masks, everybody's selling alcohol gel, their version of it. And so there's two major malls on either side of me. They've been shut down since March. The only things that are open are supermarkets, banks. There aren't many restaurants that are open. Some of my Brazilian family who are, you know, aren't as lucky who have to work, they're noticing that the transportation system is a lot lighter than it was before. Not too many people are taking the subways and the trains and the buses and stuff like that. Another contact that I have, he's a security guard in downtown Sao Paulo. He says it's pretty much like a ghost town when you're riding the train in the morning. When he comes back, the traffic is minimal. So people are taking it a little bit more seriously, but you can also see the fatigue has set in, particularly when they see their president not wearing a mask, they figure it's okay. And so you'll see people on occasion walking around without masks, but for the most part, people get shamed into putting them back on. And I have not seen people in restaurants without their masks on. As a matter of fact, they aren't even open here. So I haven't seen that at all.
You know, I'll tell you an interesting story. Craig and I are kettlebell enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Style Jam, I want you to email me, and I'll connect you with some good people. Brother Nathan, good evening. Glad to see you. Well, there's a park a few down the street and around the corner where I would go on Saturdays and Sundays sometimes and do my kettlebell routines. Well, a couple of us figured out that, we would maintain our social distancing. We weren't even going together. But at night, a lot of us would go down there, and there might be one guy over here skipping rope, another guy over here, running up and down the stairs. I'll be doing my kettlebell. We're all way more than 6 feet apart. And the other night, I casually strolled my happy ass down to the park, and I'm not paying attention. I walked there, and instead of smelling what was in the air, I looked, I was like, what is that yellow tape for? And it was yellow taped and ribboned off, and it was two cops that were just looking at me like this.
Try if you want. Yep.
Where you going? You got over here? And I was doing that just looking. Right. I just went around and walked up, and they had been standing there all night because they knew what we were doing. They knew what we were doing, and you can't let anybody slip. For example, in my own apartment building, I asked the apartment manager, I said, hey, downstairs in the parking garage, can I go down there in the mornings or in the evening and do my kettlebell exercises? Because you can't do a kettlebell. Well, you could do a kettlebell swing in your own house, but I wouldn't advise it. And she just said, no, it's not going to happen because I've got an entire building full of people, and everybody's going to be asking for some kind of special dispensation, and I'm not going to do it for you and for anybody else. So it really does wear on you. But that whole mask thing, where I live, people wear masks. When people say Brazil is on fire, as a matter of fact, we had a comment earlier. Where was it? From Inframmation in Brazil. Brazil is on fire. São Paulo's governor has just said he'll open the state's economy gradually starting June 1st. And then she also went on to say, and he'll do that due to the pressure from the president and the business class. I'm not here to talk. There are plenty of times that I like to talk business, but what I want to talk about now is what we talk about, that relative safety. Brazil is doing what it can with what it has, despite its leadership and with its leadership. The problem is when you talk to us, when you say, hey, are you safe down there? I want to be clear. I'm safer in Brazil during Corona than I would be anywhere in the United States.
And that's what I try to put to my people in the States as well, because I get at least 1 or 2 calls per week. Hey, I heard what's going on down there. And I keep trying to tell them it's probably worse where you are, where we are here. And so worry about yourself. But I understand the concern about it. But, the media is one thing in the U.S. compared to everywhere else. But that's another conversation.
I think where we all probably would agree is that there is more that the government could be doing. But when it comes to my personal safety, I'm actually in a better place here. For example, I think Yusef, you shared something. You can have someone come to your house and test you here, right? Yep. So there are things that you can do here that you cannot do in America. You cannot call a hospital in America and just say, hey, I'm home. I want you to come home and test me. They're going to tell you, you need to call this number and set up this appointment. But here, people want money. You have 280 reais, someone will test you. You have 360 reais. I have several places here where I can go and get a test every day if I want to. And you have to also think about that cost. How much is 300 reais? How much is 280 reais? I moved myself and my children to Africa. We needed yellow fever shots. Just for 3 yellow fever shots for me and my sons, that was $1,000 in America. But you go to other places in the world and you can get a yellow fever shot for $20, but in America, it's more expensive. So just by leaving the country and still having access to dollars, what I would spend here for a vaccination or for a test wouldn't even phase my pockets. So I think that we also benefit from having dollars and spending it in a developing country.
Yeah.
What you said about 300 real. 300 real is about $57 US. For $50, I can call a medical facility. They will send a nurse in a white lab jacket to put on rubber gloves, wearing a mask, and test me for whatever I want in my house and call it a bargain. That's the privilege of when you're an expat, you can do that. Go ahead.
Hell, they still got doctors that make house calls out here, which was I had never heard of before. In my grandmother's day, but not nowadays. I don't know if you guys have heard.
Right. I just
go ahead, brother. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, go ahead. Finish up.
Yeah, what I just heard today, as far as healthcare and whatnot, you can say what you want about the government here in Brazil, but what I heard today is that the government Bolsonaro just approved hydrochloroquine. I think that's how you pronounce it. Basically, for people that are basically low grade and they don't have major symptoms that can be ambulatory, you get free hydrochloroquine. You just walk into the hospital clinic, any of those sus clinics, you can walk in, they give you like a 2-week supply, and they want you to recover at home. That's some proactivity that you don't see in the United States happening, and it's free to the general public. And so, say what you will about the whole hydrochloroquine debacle, but it's something at least, and it's not going to kill the bank like it would in the U.S.
Right. We actually have access to more services here. Again, I don't want to confuse people. What I have access to with my dollars and what the average Brazilian has access to are two different things. And I think that a lot of people confuse that. So when they're checking in on me and they're asking me how I am, and I inform them that, I can order Uber Eats, and I have friends in South Africa who are quarantined there right now. They work for the American school too. They can't even order alcohol. So the South African president, a lot of stuff, just what I'm trying to point a picture of, they didn't ban too much here. Yeah. They really didn't ban much. In South Africa, you can't order alcohol from Uber Eats. You can't order cigarettes. They have a lot of, because they were concerned about drinking and domestic violence. Oh, right. So that's why as part of the quarantine, he also prohibited people from transporting, buying, or selling alcohol and cigarettes, because he was worried about how that would impact people who are living in close quarters for sustained periods of time. But again, here, there's barely any restrictions. For people who don't have money, I can understand why they're breaking quarantine. Because I think that some people here I went and bought almost $100 worth of food myself to donate to a food bank. And I did it not reluctantly. I was photographed doing it reluctantly, because my friend was like, well, I know you don't want to be photographed, but if I show people that you're doing it, maybe some of your friends will send donations too, or maybe I can get other people's. So I did it because I prefer just to donate my money and, be off the camera. But I went ahead and did it. And he asked me, would I mind sharing it on my page? Because the situation in Madureira is different from the situation here in Copacabana, right? So Madureira is a predominantly Black suburb. It took me maybe 20 minutes or so in an Uber, maybe 25. Cost me about 50 reais. And I went there to this Costco-like store, bought a bunch of, we bought rice, and you buy it in bulk. And then you put it together in a packet. And I wasn't intending to be there for the distribution of the food, but at least 2 women brought children with them, and they picked up packets. They didn't even know if my friend who runs the organization, they didn't even know if he was going to be there, because he had not even posted a schedule for that day. He planned on just buying stuff that day and packaging it. But people are desperate. And so while we sit here and flip through menus on Uber Eats, no, people cannot stay out. Fique em casa, they say, right? That's the Portuguese saying for stay at home. Fique em casa. Okay, do you just stay home and die? I mean, what do you do while you're home if you don't have the money to order from Uber Eats? Well, what do you do in the house exactly? And I wonder if the situation,
Brother Gerald,
the situation here is getting worse because people are not adhering to the quarantine because they can't afford to.
Exactly.
There's something here called a cesta básica. I'm pronouncing that wrong, but it's a basket of food that is normally given to people who have low-income jobs by their company, but you can also donate them. And a cesta básica contains all those food items. That's dry goods, oil, beans, rice. You can see the little coffee, 1 roll of cookies, pasta, a little Nestle Quick, their equivalent, and it has all these things in it. What I discovered and what my friends and I will do is if we can get addresses, and by the way, some people don't have addresses.
That's true.
You could order one of these online on your account and just have it delivered. You don't even have to put your name on it. You can just say, hey, I passed by this family and they were hungry, so I spent, I think this accounts to like $20
If
US,
that, it's less than 20.
$20, and I can buy you all this food. Why not? But what I am getting at here is that whole relative safety again. You're safe, just like it. And I said this before. You're safe if you have the money to be safe. If you have the money to socially isolate yourself. If you have the money to say, I can say I've been off my block in the past 5 months, maybe 4 times. I can say that I can limit my exposure to people to such a finite degree that I can say it's still. And this is where you get into the interesting parts of classism. I can say I'm still able to say I am within a tolerable limit to allow my house, my cleaning lady to come in and clean my apartment for me once a week. Because I'm still within such a small number of people that I'm ever exposed to. She'll come in with her mask on and I'll take off and go walk around the house, walk around the neighborhood or something. But it's a very different issue. So when they say, are you safe? What they have to ask themselves, but here's where the other issue is. I don't know that many people in the United States know that it's possible to live nicely anywhere else in the world. Most of my cousins and friends are listening to the same televisions that told them all Black people are evil, and they knew that was evil and wrong, and they still think that they're telling the truth about countries where the people don't even speak English. So they'll hear someone say, oh, I heard this about Brazil. Are you trusting the same news source that told you deserve to be shot on the street? Really? Ask somebody that lives there.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think what's really scary about the situation here is, although I feel protected personally because of my own means, nothing to do with the government, I do worry that the lack of support, financial support to Brazilians from the government, I do worry it's going to push more people into the streets prematurely. And I say this because I've noticed that Casa and Video, they've opened up. I've seen a lot of stores. What they'll do is they'll pull the gate up halfway. They'll act like they're sweeping or cleaning. And then you walk by and they're like, oh, some sandals. Oh, you want this. They're desperate, even if it's just a few dollars. So they're not like opening up the whole gate and standing there like they're ready. They're opening up stores before they're supposed to. And so I am actually seeing a lot of stores here, smaller ones, open up for business. And I don't know if they're just trying to get enough food for the day, enough money to buy food for the day or what, but I've noticed shoe stores opening. I've noticed barbershops opening. They'll open the gate, let a client in, and then they'll close the gate. It doesn't matter. You're breaking quarantine, whether you're letting one person in at a time or not. I'm noticing that people are beginning to get desperate for money, and they're willing to take a little bit of risk.
If you look at history, whenever the lower classes don't have what they need to survive, it usually leads to problems down the road. So, when the governments are managing this reopening, they need to really think about the most responsible way to do it. Because if you're desperate and have absolutely nothing to lose, you're going to get what you need by any means necessary. And so there's a question here. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. You can read it. Go for it.
Yeah, there's a question here that says, would you say that Bolsonaro, like Trump, is right about wanting to open up the economy? I think there's a way to do it responsibly, and you have to roll it out with a lot of different things in consideration. An immediate opening up without any regard to life or health or safety, I think is irresponsible and fiscally irresponsible as well. Because once that second wave hits, because it will hit inevitably, then how are you going to deal with that? How are you going to deal with the aftermath of it? I do think that there's a responsible way to roll it out, but it's way above my pay grade to say how that happens.
And to go back to
and I think because they haven't put out any information, and a lot of people get angry when you talk about having a plan. I have friends that seem to be they're very polarized. Either you're a Bolsonaro supporter and you want the government to open up everything now, or you're on the opposite end and you just want everything to stay closed, Fica and Casa. You can't have just opposite ends up. You got to come to the middle, right? So I don't believe the Fica and Casa thing is working. That's my personal opinion. And I also don't believe that just telling everybody to go back onto the streets and start shopping is going to work either. I think there needs to be some type of middle ground. Maybe you give families okay, if your family's last name ends in A, you can come out on Mondays. I know Ecuador implemented this. I'm going to be working in Ecuador starting the end of July. And I've been talking to people there, and they're like, oh, no, because of our license plate, we can only be on the streets on this day. Oh, okay, well, my family has the number, and so we can only be out on Tuesdays. Hey, it may not be perfect, but at least it's a plan.
Right.
They've got phase cities, Ecuador, where this city may be in phase red, which means you have to be on curfew until 2 p.m. You're on curfew as of 2 p.m. Well, this city might be on phase yellow, which means you can stay out until 6 p.m. I just think that there needs to be some type of plan. And right now, I have no information of any plan whatsoever here in Brazil. Like,
exactly.
do you two know something I don't know? Is there a plan?
There's no definite.
You know, here's the thing. POF asked, he said, will giving out hydrochlorine cause unintended second and third effects? I'm smart enough to tell you that if you listen to anybody that at minimum doesn't hold a doctorate level education in medicine, you shouldn't listen to what they tell you. Now, you can choose among the people with doctorate level education who you believe may give you better or worse information, but that should be the minimum bar. If you're asking somebody, ask me about a blue belt level choke. Ask me about how to pack on 20 pounds of muscle after quarantine. Shit I know about. Ask me about traveling the world. Ask me about how to be an expat. Don't ask someone who isn't a doctor. And I say that with love, not disrespect, POF. Panama also banned alcohol sales for the same reason in South Africa. I've got so many people that have been telling me, I have friends who are psychiatrists and psychologists dealing with the domestic issue, and they said it is insane.
Wow.
It is insane. It's on another level. I mean, the people who, and here's what's really scary, people who were not abusers before becoming abusive.
Intimate partner violence as well as child abuse has risen considerably.
Yeah, I'm going to mention that. Yeah, child abuse is on the rise too.
Absolutely.
And again, you look at what type of children are being abused. It's the same thing. It's people in certain situations, right? So if you have a lot of means, maybe you're not frustrated, but maybe if you're a father, you haven't worked in 2 months and you can't bring home any money, maybe you're a little bit louder in your interactions. Maybe you're a little bit more physical. This isn't an excuse. This is just understanding why people might be doing the things that they're doing, that they shouldn't be doing. But again, without a plan in place, I just don't see the situation getting better, because right now we know they're only giving $100 a month. Is that the equivalent of the government's
600 AI per month, about $100 a month, yeah.
I completely, Nathan Francis said, I completely understand. As some people are observing, the onset of COVID has revealed many weaknesses in the U.S. economy and way of life. I'm seriously thinking of becoming an expat. I got a place here for you. You know, you and I chat a lot offline, Brother Nathan. You know that whenever you're ready, it's like they used to say on The Price is Right, come on down. Because if this hasn't shown people that maybe America really doesn't care about you, you know, here's the thing. And to play the race card on this in an unintended way, I have a lot of white friends who just found out that because they're white doesn't mean anything in the face of this danger. That the government equally doesn't care about you because you're also poor.
Yep. Economics and poverty is the great equalizer. If you're poor, we don't give a damn about you in the U.S. It doesn't matter about race.
You know, and that's, for the record, for everybody watching, make sure you're clicking the subscribe button. And right now, if you're watching on Facebook, and I always forget to say this, if you're watching on Facebook, you still need to click the link I'll put at the top. I need you to click subscribe so that you'll get this on YouTube, because YouTube gets all my posts, not just some of them. And it's critically important. It's critically important. That's how I get to have such great conversations, meet good people. We have chats about 3 different things, not just social issues like this. We also talk about my favorite subject. We talk about money, saving money, credit, how to spend money the right way. We do a lot of conversations about world travel, not just life in Brazil. And this is how we do it. We get to meet great people. And I need everybody to make sure they click the subscribe button and share this somewhere. That's important. Share this on your Facebook. Share this on your Twitter accounts. That's important. be sure to subscribe on YouTube. I'm typing this in because I can't do two things at once, so I can't type and talk at the same time.
Hey, at least you admit it, man. Nothing wrong with that.
And here's the thing, I'm good at it. I just can't do both at the same time. Let me see what Carol Tyson said here. Carol Tyson says, the mayor of Sao Paulo a plan like Ecuador. License plate meant you could drive one day, but then those people crowd onto the public transport and too many people still need work to survive. Oh, thank you, Carol. I hadn't even thought about that. Huh.
Yeah, if you're desperate and broke, you better try to find a way,
No, I think I understand. I can understand why that came from. And that's why each country has to figure out what works best for them, right? So, but I can definitely see that probably not working in Sao Paulo. I just brought up Ecuador because I'm just wondering, okay, if this doesn't work for you, well, what will work for you? There's got to be there has to be thousands of PhDs and social workers and community organizers. There have to be people here with a skill set to plan their comeback and to plan the best protection. So I'm just surprised that there is no plan. I'm not surprised that the COVID-19 pandemic is still going. I expected it to be ongoing. To come from Congo, Brazzaville, where I was working in Africa, and to see that they had a better plan in place. And I don't read French very well, which is the language of Congo. But where I work, we have an office assistant, and he basically translated everything. Even the president in Congo was able to come up with a phase 1 and a phase 2, a phase 3. Right now, they're in their second phase where you can get on public transport, but no more than 10 people. Listen, somebody's going to violate that. But what I'm saying is, I give the president of Congo credit for nothing else, but at least distributing a plan.
Sure. What I heard
is another story. But I have been here since March. I still don't know what the plan is.
And that's a shame. I mean, one credit to a lot of those African nations, the ones that had to deal with Ebola, are way farther ahead in preparation and planning than the rest of the world.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. But yeah, like even here in Sao Paulo,
and I know one thing, that even if the president...
Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
People may not know what to do, but you depend on your expert. You depend on your experts. So maybe the president of Congo doesn't know that much, but Congo is also the headquarters for Africa's World Health Organization. So the WHO of Africa is headquartered in Congo, Brazzaville. So you have this whole community of doctors and epidemiologists who he can say, hey, I don't know what to do. What do you think? And they were able to come up with the plan, and they have very little infections there. But I also think that Brazil has a larger upper class. And I think that because they had the financial means, they traveled outside of Brazil and they brought it back. Congo has a very small upper class. Most people don't have the money to travel to Italy on vacation. And so I think we're also looking at this disease here because Brazil had a significant amount of people who have traveled to Europe. And I think they brought it back and gave it to their housekeepers. And
yeah. But that's what Mr. Styledram said. He said, I think Brazil has an informal economy of about 70%. So how can they keep the economy locked down any further without totally ruining the economy? And by the way, when he says an informal economy, we would translate that into the lady who's selling masks on the street is not a formal worker. Who during the course of my day?
Subway stations that are selling food and stuff like that, or, handmade goods and food and stuff like that.
Cantinas.
Yeah.
Reais. The little cantina bill, 10, 15 reais.
I know a lot of restaurants that have just day workers. They get paid, but they're not on the books. They're informal. The SS Moss said, this is global economic warfare. Not all economies are created equal. Brazil thrives on labor and commodity trading, not as equipped as the U.S. service-oriented economy. Well said.
Mm-hmm.
Very well said. Yeah, I mean, that's not something you can really get around. That's true. There is no situation in which everyone can get out equally. There is no situation in which we will all be in a situation to succeed. The problem is you can't choose the winners and losers, because as much as people don't want to believe otherwise, that middle class, upper middle class, and wealthy sector needs the guy that pours his coffee just as much as anybody else. He needs that lady who comes in to clean his apartment just as much as everybody else. You know? Carol went on to say, I know someone who brought it back to Brazil the week following Carnival because they had been on a ski trip to Colorado. No doubt it began from the people who could afford to travel overseas.
Absolutely.
Wow. That's how it happened.
Yeah. That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
And then some of these people, they don't have a support, they don't have a safety network. So once they get it, they don't have a safety network. Once they're out of work, they're out of work. And so, you know, I don't complain about Brazil for my own sake. I complain about Brazil for the people who don't have a voice. And even though I'm getting on a plane on Sunday and I'm going back to America, if that plane takes off, as of right now, it's scheduled to depart. But I leave here hoping that, I really hope the people here come. I hope they wake up. And I know there's been some protests at night, people bang on pots and stuff, but I don't think that's enough. I don't think that's enough. I think they need to bring it to the streets and say, hey, here's what we want. And again, some people say, well, it's a pandemic, we really shouldn't be protesting. I don't know. Do you stay home and suffer in silence? What do you do? Like, I'm not proposing to have the answers, but there's got to be something better than this, because while these government officials are bickering with each other,
people are dying.
There's still no plan in place.
Well, one thing I can tell you,
social safety net,
is that when you say it like that, it reminds me of, I can't remember which group of people it was that are constantly being underserved by the government, killed by police, and told it's never a good time to complain because there's other things you need to worry about and it's not as bad as it was before. Can somebody help me remember who that was? I don't know.
Right.
There's this group of people that try to protest, and when they protest, they're told they're doing a disservice because you're making the situation worse. But if they just go back home and stay silent, they keep dying. I can't remember off the top of my head who those people were.
Right on. There's never a good time.
Oh, wait, they were black. That's what it was.
Well, they're not patriotic.
Yeah.
Black, and then you'll be called unpatriotic for doing it. And then the people who are patriots who want the government to do whatever they want to do.
Pretty much. Wow. Pretty much. But I mean, I agree with the brother, man. He said, that people are going to have to do something drastic. And there's no time like the present to do it. It may not be the best time, so to speak. But when you're in a situation to make real change, I mean, sometimes you got to take the chance. And I'm sure that there are people on the underground in Brazil that are actually thinking of what they can do to make make things more equitable for everyone and to have a great plan. But hopefully, everybody will pick up steam and do something.
So we got a quick question here. Do you think the Carnival in Brazil early this year aided in the spread? I think if it had hit Carnival, I think it would be so much worse than it is now.
Yeah, I think we dodged a bullet on that one. I think it would have been crazy had it been going on since Carnival time.
Yeah, I don't think that's and Carol says no because we only had about 5 cases in the country Carnival week. The person I know was a child who traveled with his family Carnival week.
I think the real question is how it's going to be this year and going forward.
What Carnival? Do you really think?
There's a lot of money, man. I don't know. There's a lot of money to be made during Carnival season with the tourism and whatnot. So going forward, I want to see how they manage that. Or is it just going to be business as usual?
I'll tell you what.
Will a vaccine be available by Carnival? I think the real question for that is, by the time Carnival gets here, will there be a vaccine? There are people saying there's an aggressive push to have a vaccine ready by December. I don't think that's really possible. But that would be
at least 3, even expedited, it's going to take at least 2 to 3 years, and that's the quickest. And so if people are looking for a magical pill that's going to get here in 6 months, no way. Not unless they test it on, Africans and, black people, and then they go to trial.
Who would do that? Who would test medicine?
I wonder who would do that.
That's crazy.
Right.
That's so
like they did the
unethical.
Tuskegee.
Exactly. So unless they can find a test group that's unwitting and unwilling, who knows? It's going to take at least 2 years.
I'll tell you what, though, for everybody who's talking about Carnival next year, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to sit at home and I'm going to look at my videos from Carnival from the past couple of years, all the ensayos that I've been to. If anybody wants a link, there you go. I am so happy to have enjoyed all those things. I feel bad for Brother Craig because I'm going to tell you, when he hit Brazil, I had an entire social agenda. I said, we're going to go to this restaurant, and I'm going to take you to this ensayo. We're going to listen to music at this club. It's going to be awesome. We're going to go be able to exercise at the park every Saturday, and all that shit came down.
So we had about a good 3 weeks, right?
Not even a whole month.
Right on.
Oh, your sister Kenneth Williams, thank you for showing up. You came in late to the party, but it's we're trying to unpack this the best we can. And Sister Kenna is in South Africa, where she's getting her permanent residency, just as I have it in Brazil. And right now we are talking about the fight for coronavirus. Not all fights are equal. The problem we're having is that everybody is in a different place. If you are one of the people here fighting, well, we can fight a lot easier. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's probably going to be the norm for a while. Cancel
So
flights.
let me tell you something. You people have no idea how much game I had to spit at Kenna to get her to give Brazil a chance. I was like, come out here. You're going to have a good time with us. She was fighting until finally one day she just broke and said, all right, well, I'm buying a ticket. Y'all better have it going on out there when I come. And I was so excited, and now this happens.
Corona.
It's just pain. So does all this keep coming back to? I mean, are we circling back to the same thing, that we have a government that part of the government is doing nothing, then the other part of the government, for example, what Carol said earlier, it still gets to me. The part where, she talked about. Let me back up for a second. I want to get back, Gerald. You've been with us for a little while now, and I know you're a very busy man. Do you have time, or do you got to run?
I have 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Well, what I was saying is that Carol talked about how the mayor arranged so only half the number of people would be driving, but twice as many people ended up taking the subway because they still had to work.
Yep.
And so now there's no net gain. That's devastating.
And, it all comes down to, lack of management, lack of guidance, lack of planning. And so, this whole, riding by the seat of your pants approach, it doesn't work. It never has, never will. So, I don't know what the solution is. I don't know how to move forward. It's crazy.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. This is important information we need. Did you cancel it, or did the airline cancel it? When POF said I was coming to São Paulo with Kenna. Yeah. Hopefully 2021, because basically the only thing that can happen now is aliens spit forth from the center of the earth and eat people. That's what's left.
No reason. Alien.
I think that we need to prepare for a Brazil that is badly damaged from this experience. It doesn't mean they can't crawl back. I think I've been watching Brazil over the last 15 years, and there have been problems, but there's also been some progress in some areas over the last decade. So I don't want to sound all gloom. I think there have been some areas of progress. Where we go from here, the only thing I can say is I definitely think that there needs to be more activism. Like people are complaining about Donald Trump in America, but where were you on election night? People are complaining about, the president of Brazil now. Where were they on election night? And I'm not saying that to place blame. I'm saying that to say that you have to take your power in some way. And I hope that people will learn from this experience. America going through, this virus during Trump, and the Brazilians going through this virus during with their particular administration. Hopefully people will take these elections a little bit more seriously, because now you see when you don't vote,
there are consequences.
You are impacted.
Absolutely.
Even your health can be impacted. This is not just a conservative or progressive or Democrat or Green Party kind of thing. This could be your livelihood.
Since you gotta go, I'm gonna leave you with something to put on your head that we'll discuss next time you're back. I wanted Trump to win.
Okay.
Wanted Trump to win. I wanted the United States to be faced with a situation because everyone tends to forget what our alternatives were. We tend to forget, and we're going to have a political discussion about why I'm dropping all political affiliations. If anybody has any suggestions about political parties they might want me to join, you can inbox me or come on the chat. But the reality is our choices were, it's kind of like if you have a shit sandwich for lunch, it doesn't matter what corner you start on. So I wanted America to start with the thickest, juiciest part so everybody hurt. It's not like the things that were happening in Black America just started with Trump, or the anti-gay stuff happened with Trump. I just like the fact that a lot of people who are not affected by negative political behavior now understand what that pain is, so maybe they'll get their stuff together, except now we're getting DP'd because it's like you get old man Biden, who's like one heartbeat away from a new vice president, and he's already screwed over from Georgia.
Sarah Abrams.
Sarah Abrams, who would have been like the Wonder Woman next to Batman, but no, that can't happen.
Yeah.
Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, well, he always speaks out of turns. Stacey Abrams, listen, I hear what you're saying. Personally, I'm going to be okay no matter what, because I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of me. But I was really hoping for a change. Not just because of Trump being a bad, but I think about the other people who can't just pick up and move. And I know a lot of us have made decisions to become expats, but we've also done a few other things along the way. We've gotten some certificates or some type of degrees or some type of trainings that allow you to just pick up and move. Everybody can't do that. Sometimes you got to do some things before you can just pick up and move. And my heart aches for those who just don't have the ability to do it. Sure. Because if he's reelected, then they're stuck with him. And the same thing goes for the people here. You have friends who are not friends any longer because they differ on their opinion about the Brazilian president. But the truth is, most of these friends who are not agreeing with each other, they all have money. They still get paid. They're still working through the pandemic. The real people who are being punished are the ones who they're left out. That's that informal economy you're talking about. Yep. Those are the people I'm worried about. And I only encourage other people to get out there and vote and do something, because it's the people who can't speak up for themselves that end up suffering the most. If I don't like something, I'll get on a plane and go somewhere else.
It's a luxury a lot of people don't have. I get it.
Yeah.
But thank you for having me. I'm still working.
I hope you and the family are safe, and let us know.
Hey, take care, brother.
Thank you. Hopefully I'll be back with my on Monday. Nice to see you brothers online, and keep up the good work.
All right.
Bye. I'm sincerely hoping that everything goes well for him. His airplane is scheduled to take off Sunday, like he said.
Yeah, I was surprised he was able to get a flight out. So yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can do it.
Carol says, crazy thing, I'm still better off here than returning to New Zealand, where everything is more expensive, and I would like to not be able to get a job, but I feel for the poor everywhere. Yeah.
They're the ones that feel it the most.
But how is that? The thing is, the fact that poverty kills you faster is not related to COVID.
Yeah.
A lot of us understand that we have certain privileges in life. The problem is there's no way you can look at someone and say, okay, you don't be poor. Because he's right. By the time we got where we are, we had made decisions in the past that got us here earlier.
Yeah. And it's just one of those things, like it all goes down to management. Like, how do you manage what you know is going to be the inevitability of people suffering, people dying, people not being able to manage their daily lives? Like, what do? You know, you can try to throw a bunch of money on it, but long term, what does that do? It doesn't do anything.
See, this also gets to the fact of what do you do with people who you know you haven't given the skills to learn how to manage their money, because a lot of it keeps coming back to that same issue. Now you're in a situation where everybody's in a situation where, hey, I don't know what to do. Do you know what to do? I don't know what to do.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, moving forward, it's the big up in the air sandwich. There's so much lessons that have to be learned, so much that has to happen before people get it and say, aha, yes, this is what we need to be doing. Too many unknowns.
Whew, this was not as enlightening as I was hoping it would be.
It's a serious topic. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's no, this is topic. You know, to go on to the origin of the topic, you know, the perception of Brazil around the world in regard to how it's handling COVID. You don't know it's accurate. You don't know it's true, but it's a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal. A lot of people are dying. A lot of people are suffering, particularly in areas where they don't have the infrastructure, particularly like in places like in the Northeast and stuff like that. I have associates up there. If they get sick, they can't go to the hospital because they're not set up to accommodate people with COVID. And so they're basically being sent home to deal with it on their own, and, you know, maybe take a couple of natural herb supplements, but that's really about it. And there's no plan in place to help these people. So what do you do?
For the people who don't know, would you say the north of Brazil is where the deep south of America is when you get into those small backwoods, I'm not saying backwoods is a pejorative.
Sure,
but those small areas, those small pockets where there are just fewer government services than could possibly be imagined. Because Brazil is a city that's not just one city. It's so many cities all at once. And the disparity between the haves and the have-nots
it's huge.
Dare I say enormous. You know, dare I say enormous.
You know, it is when you have such a big disparity. Like, I know certain people that live in villages outside of like Salvador and the Bahia area, and they have basically the basics. You know, they still got to walk to a well to get their water. They still have they don't have indoor plumbing. There are still places like that exist in Brazil. And so,
yeah, way out in the countryside, yeah. Which is, it's hard because I know people that live in Sao Paulo that don't know those places exist because we live in this crown jewel of the city.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, Sao Paulo, Brazil is one of the greatest cities in the world. But when you come here and you live here, but I don't know, is that any different from people who go to the United States and don't know that the bad side of Chicago exists?
It's the same here as it is anywhere. It's no different.
So let me do this. Oh, yeah, we had some. There we go. Where are you, Carol? Sao Paulo. Yeah, Carol, don't forget to shoot me a message on Facebook. Carol, Sao Paulo, yes. Where were we? There were Mr. Style Jam. Do you predict an uptick in crime as a result of the impending economic collapse, or do you worry for your safety going forward? I personally don't worry for my safety because I don't live in an unsafe place. I live in a place that allows me the privilege of being able to say anyone, anywhere in the world, the United States or Brazil, can get robbed. Do I live in a place where that's actually a thing that happens to people? No. Craig, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, there is inevitably going to be an uptick in crime because there's a correlation between crime and poverty, obviously. So if there is desperation of the people, you're going to have an uptick of crime. Do I feel personally unsafe going forward? I'll probably watch my back a little bit more, but you know, if you have a little bit of awareness, I don't think that there are going to be people like raiding the gates and tearing down, you know, fire and brimstone and all of that. But I think there will be an uptick in crime. But if you keep your wits and your common sense about yourself, I don't think it'll be anything abnormal as far as, where you can't walk down the street without getting robbed, or you can't walk to the grocery store without getting assaulted. But there will be more crime just because people will be more desperate.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's one of those, you're right. Also, if you're not one of those people who's going places at night, walking around with your phone out, the same way you wouldn't do that in downtown LA, downtown Houston, Texas, downtown, New York City, you wouldn't do it here.
Here's one of the things that I like about Brazil in regards to crime. Now, crime anywhere is bad. The one thing that I notice about Brazil is that if you're a criminal, you're not going to deal with people who have as much money as you or less. You're going to go for the rich people. And so a lot of the people that really have to worry are the people that project themselves as having money. So for just people that live in an average neighborhood with average things, not flashy, low profile, you're probably not going to get vic'd. However, if you live or you have an address that's exclusive, or you live a lifestyle that's pretty high class for Brazilian standards, you might have to watch your back a little bit because they're going to be looking at you. And
I did something called Brazil Violence and Danger Where You Are, where I had to explain to people, the way I calculate danger is like this. Out of the course of a 365-day year, where do I stand the biggest chance of being killed? It's not anywhere in Brazil.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I can agree.
And for anybody who wants it, I'm going to post it here. It's Brazil Violence and Danger Where You Are. Here's the reality. The United States is the only place where you may be driving through a parking lot at a supermarket or 3 or 4 days ago, a shopping mall, and just have a guy with an automatic rifle just start shooting people. Black, white, and in between. The United States is the only place where you can take your family to the movies one night just to watch a movie, because people watched movies back then, and have a guy in the theater just pull out a gun and start shooting people. The United States is the only place where people will send their children to school with bulletproof backpacks. Even the worst, most degenerate criminals in Brazil wouldn't even conceive of. Other criminals would set them on fire in public. It just doesn't work that way.
Yep.
But Americans are desensitized to the fact that we live in an extraordinarily violent place. But you don't know.
Most don't even recognize how violent the U.S. is until you leave the U.S. and then you come back. And then you notice, my God, we're in a constant state of fear and paranoia due to violence.
Here's the thing. Even in my very safe area of the city, my wits are heightened walking through the dog at night. Well, one, Carol, don't tell anybody where in the city you live. Nobody needs that information, but I understand what you're saying. Two, thank you for having a dog. I wrote an article once for my website, and it said, Wateef, I need a gun. And I'm a gun person in the United States, but I tell people all the time, the best gun in the world isn't even close to a halfway decent dog. A woman with a person, not a woman, a person with a dog in the house has a higher level of protection than you would with a gun. Because you can't negotiate a dog. Even the worst dog will at least tell you somebody is there. Dogs are awesome. Thank you. And don't walk your dog at night. Get up early. Walk your dog during the day. Don't walk the dog at night.
But she's smart for keeping a heightened state of awareness. And that's, most criminals, they look for the person who's not paying attention, for the person who's the easiest vic. So if you have your wits about yourself and you're paying attention to your environment, the likelihood of them taking a chance on you is going to be less than the person who's not oblivious to their surroundings and not paying attention.
I have a friend in Sao Paulo who has set up a small NGO, non-governmental organization. I help her and I encourage others to help. It's how I feel better about my privileged situation. Well, okay, we'll have to have a different conversation about that because I never felt bad about my privileged situation. But I understand what you're saying about helping, and when you catch me on Facebook, we'll chat about that. And what do you say? We have that here too in townships. Yeah, that poverty level. Seeing more people on the streets, and yeah, people don't have a choice.
That's it.
Wait a minute, hold on. Those conditions, no electricity, running water, etc., are not unique to rural Brazil. Panama, Colombia, Honduras, Eastern Shore, VA. Did he say Eastern Shore, Virginia?
I would assume. I'm not familiar with that part of that. Maybe you'll want to clarify.
Yeah, you don't rob your neighbor. Or what do you say? Or jogging in the park, walking, and a woman makes a fake call to the police that you're attacking her to get killed while in police custody. That just happened. Yeah.
That's another big discussion, boy. I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's another huge discussion. That's one of those. Where are we going from here? I want to say, as we start to wrap this up, I have some other things I have to do, and I also want to talk to Craig offline about some other issues we got going on. But I want to say thank you to everybody who contributed to this, because it was a critical discussion. I enjoy having deep discussions. I enjoy giving people a platform, and I want everybody to share this on their Facebook, because this is how they find out. This is the truth about where we live. This is not the news. This is how people find out where they are, what they're doing. When someone says, "Hey, are you safe there? I heard people are running around with their heads on fire." Send them a copy of this video or send them that link. I have a couple of different things on Brazil there. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button and make sure you click the like button. I'll also show everybody one of the things that gives me the privilege of staying at home. Craig's been around long enough. He knows where this is going. I'm proud to tell people that I run my own business as an editor, copy editor, proofreader, people who have books or articles or journalism pieces that need to be done in correct English. I do ghostwriting for people. In Brazil, I work with a couple of CEOs and CFOs who do TED Talks and teach them I've been a public speaker since I was a child, and that's where I got persuasive writing and persuasive speech. But I always show people this. I always show people my LinkedIn. My name is YusefWateef everywhere, and I tell everyone, hey, listen, this is a good place to catch me, but don't look at my resume first. My resume is fine. My resume is fun. It's awesome, blah, 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 super resume. I say to everyone, scroll to the part where it comes to, and this is for anyone you come in contact with online, look at their recommendations. These are the people who you know internationally. These are the clients that I've had that say Wateef is who's worth it, and they say this under their professional names. This is how I earn clients, and that's what I show to everyone. And as far as that whole other side of the coin, for people who are interested in everything from the technical details of how to leave the United States, how to prepare for life in another country, some of the different things that we do behind the scenes to sustain ourselves financially, my YouTube channel grew into an offshoot on Patreon. And I'm proud to say that I have a Patreon that I show people, and it's been growing substantially. It's where I give people a lot of diverse information. So I'll put the Patreon.
So how many subscribers are you up to now?
I think 16 or 17, but I want to be abundantly clear. I'm not in it for the numbers. The people on this Patreon are people, we get to go into some real deep issues of a lot of it. I won't lie. A lot of it is money making. A lot of it is the technical details of paperwork. My Patreon, I tell people all the time, the Patreon is where I'm not necessarily an exciting person. Patreon is where you go when you say, well, listen, Wateef talked about traveling the world. How do I do it? Wateef talks about getting paperwork to live in another country. This is how you do it. This is how you get, well, hold on, let me scroll down. I think some of it's going to be on the front page. I won't go through the gratuitous reading to you all the different levels, but let's go down. I just shared a little something today earlier. I remember when I hit my 12, my dirty dozen, and that was my first goal for myself.
Right.
Google Money class. I just posted something today. Something came across my desk that was a good way to make money, and I showed a few people on Patreon what I came across. How to get background checks for immigration and be life as an expat. Prison to passport. I have a friend who is a well-known expat who actually went to prison, came out, changed his life around, and is now a superstar YouTube travel person. And he talks about how you do it. We talk about stuff you can't talk about on YouTube here.
Excellent.
Yeah, I have experts that come in and talk with me, everybody from attorneys that work in these areas. And this is what I do. This is what I do. Carol, come with comments. It's so great listening to educated perspective, relevant conversation. Thank you, because we need you. Like, we definitely need you. Oh my goodness, Sid just blew my skull open. Eastern Shore, Virginia, and Maryland have those conditions. He's talking about 2020.
Wow, I had no idea. I thought he would have thought about, you know, Mississippi or Alabama, someplace like that. But yeah, I had no idea.
But Craig, I'll give you the last word on this dour proceeding.
Yeah, there's not much to reiterate. We've already covered it. I mean, it's sort of like, you know, I feel better here in Brazil than I would anywhere else. But the situation is far from over. And the best we can do is take care of each other, take care of ourselves, our family, our friends, reach out to community. And one thing that I do love about Brazil is the resiliency of the Brazilian people. You know, a lot of them have been beat down, a lot of them have been dragged down, but they always manage to rise and do better. So just take care of one another.
And with that, I'll say goodnight to everyone and thank you.